Hello.
Hey.
Hey. Come quick. There are tampons everywhere! I immediately took a deep breath and physically removed the phone from my ear to cringe. After I had finally unfrozen my grossed out, scrunched up face, I opened my eyes to gaze at the cell phone in my hand. I was overcome by an expression of ultimate incredulity. Before I put the receiver back to my ear, I had to question what exactly it is that I had heard. This was the beginning of the first and last phone call that I ever received from Justin. He was the boyfriend of my close friend, Sarah, in college. The thing about Justin is that we were pretty cool. We just didn't really hang out together when Sarah wasn't there or any other large groups of people. Typically, she would drag him to hang out with our group of girlfriends because he was bored and tired of video games. And we'd be doing typical stuff like doing a seasonal craft project or completing a puzzle with penguins on it or something, and he'd be all, "You guys are boring, why am I here?" And Sarah would say something like, "You can go hang out with your friends if you don't want to be with mine." And he'd make an excuse that he was already here and was too lazy to leave. Then we'd all go get pizza. This happened a surprisingly frequent amount of times. That being said, Justin and I got along fine, but we just didn't have that much common ground. He liked to talk about fishing, more video games I'd never heard of that may have sounded vaguely violent, and about that one time we saw Paranormal 3 and it sucked, and how maybe Paranormal 4 would be better. Case in point, I was actually pretty surprised to hear from him. Coming back to the phone call, though. "Excuse me?" I had to ask. "What exactly are you talking about?" And then he just remembering his previous statement, I quickly added in a high-pitched voice, "Also, did you just say tampons?" Justin thought for a second, and then in an exasperated and defeated tone, he responded, "I just need your help, okay? This is getting out of hand. I have something for you. Just come over. I'll be in my room." He had virtually given me none of the information I had just asked for whatsoever. Typical Justin. In an attempt to glean any info I could, I immediately shouted over into the phone, "No, you are not getting off that easy. What's the deal? You can't just tell me to come over without any reason whatsoever." Justin responded in a hushed tone, as if he were trying to hide our conversation from someone else in the same room. "It's just too long to get into now. It might be too risky, but I'll tell you the whole thing when you come over." I had a strange feeling about this, but it was really too hard to ignore a request like that. He sounded desperate. Curiosity overtook me. I couldn't help wondering what was happening from his side on the phone. So I did what any friend with a surprisingly large amount of time that day and a high threshold for bullshit would do. I slung my backpack over my shoulders to make the 20-minute trek across campus in order to solve my friend's boyfriend's mysterious tampon-related dilemma. Climbing up the stairs to the sophomore boys' floor, I immediately swerved in through the already open door because that is an appropriate way to leave your door in dorm culture. After a foot past the doorpost, I stopped dead in my tracks to find Justin on the edge of his seat. Literally. It looked like he had been half sitting and waiting, like a puppy who stares at the door and waits for his owner to come home. He immediately popped up and ran from his half-sit and ran into the closet, shouting, "Thank God you're here!" Immediately dragging his wooden desk chair to the double-doored closet. Justin climbed to the top of the chair and started removing items one by one from the highest shelf. Like speaking to a small child, I chimed in, "Whoa there, big fella. Before we get started, aren't you going to tell me why I'm here?" Justin stopped and looked puzzled as if he'd forgotten something important. Holding a large storage bin in his arm, it clicked. He laughed, absent-mindedness, realizing he should fill me in. Justin began to explain. "So, you know my roommate, Peter? Peter works part-time at the check-in receptionist at the big gym in Central Campus. Every couple weeks, a rep from some big tampon company comes in and drops off these boxes with tampon samples for him to pass out at the front desk or to leave in the girls' locker room or whatever. Either way, They have tons of tampon samples in the gym for girls to take as brand promotions or something. I quizzically replied, yes, I am familiar with these, and, well, last week Pete came home with 3 huge boxes of them. Please take them. I don't know how else to get rid of them. This really was not what I expected to hear. I was kind of amused, actually. This wasn't really a problem at all. It was kind of awesome. I mean, free tampons! But still, I had a lot of questions. Wait, what compelled Pete to steal 3 whole industrial-sized boxes of tampons, and what is he doing with them? Justin sat down. His face looked crestfallen, as if he was a weary war general about to tell the story of his fallen troops. His voice filled with what seemed like memories he was trying to repress. It's been awful. He's been terrorizing the whole floor. Pete's been tying the tampon string to guys' doorknobs in the hall. He's been dipping them in fruit punch and leaving them around the guys' bathrooms and showers. He's been hanging them from the lamps, so you think it's the string to pull that turn the lights on. But the tampon will just break off in your hand, and you're stuck in the dark with a tampon in your hand. Everyone is so grossed out. We all just want things to go back to normal. He's used half the boxes already. Wait. So, Justin, are you telling me that to solve this problem, you're just offering me a bunch of free tampons? He meekly replied, yeah, I guess. I already gave a bunch to Sarah and her roommate, but they won't take any more. So I just hid the rest. I know it's only a matter of time until he finds them again, though. I really need your help. I don't know what other girl to call. He took the box from his hands and handed it to me. Surely enough, it was a pristinely packed to the top with rows and rows of immaculate, shiny, magenta, brand-named 3-pack sample boxes. This was the jackpot. On one hand, it felt really weird to accept this, knowing that, number 1, this was a stolen lot of tampons, and number 2, something feels weird stealing already stolen tampons. However, in the way that Justin described it, I guess this was some odd public service to save these poor guys of their present tampon-filled misery. It was hard to say no to. This was a good deed, I told myself. That, and it was a pretty alluring deal. It almost felt too good to be true. He was giving me all the tampons I could carry. This meant I would never have to buy tampons for what seemed like forever. Imagine all the time I could be spared. Not having to take the big schlep to the store to have to stand in the vast and ominous feminine hygiene aisle, gazing up at the steep shelves, having to choose the nuanced difference between super absorbent and sport variations. I could be free from all that. So I agreed. I closed back up the full box of tampons and set it aside. Then Justin gave me another half box that we had taken by magenta sample box and put each one into my backpack so that I didn't have to carry 2 large boxes home with me. He thanked me and sent me on my way, backpack full to the rim with the little pink boxes poking out of the decorative holes in my bag and an entire box in my hand with a huge Playtex logo on the side that I just tried to hide with my arms. I prayed to God that I didn't run into anyone I knew on the way back to my room. Epilogue. 2 years later, Sarah and Justin had gotten engaged. We had all moved away from our home state by then, and she called me to tell me the news and catch up on how life had been since we'd spoken last. We discussed our new cities, jobs, and lives, and then we reminisced on our college years. Towards the end, as everyone does, we exchanged apologies about how we hadn't talked more recently. I began, yeah, I was actually going to call you a couple weeks ago because I trailed off. She asked, because why? And I coyly replied, Well, this might have been a little weird, but it's been 2 years and I had just finished off my entire supply of tampons that Justin gave me, and it reminded me that I should call you. She burst out laughing and responded the only the way another girl could in this situation. I also just finished up the tampons Justin had given me. We were both embarrassed about this kind of a TMI moment, but you had to admit, the gift of getting through 2 years of not shopping for tampons was quite an incredible feat.